Would you still open your front door if a cop smiled and said, "We just need to talk"? Because that polite doorstep chat can turn into a search, a detention, or an arrest in seconds. The trap is simple. They get you talking first, and your rights start slipping the moment you help them. Hit subscribe right now, because what I'm about to show you could stop one bad knock from wrecking your life. Like this video too, so you can find it fast when this happens at your house for real. Here's the reality. Your front door is not just wood and locks. It's the line between your private world and the government. Once that line opens, everything changes fast. In this video, you're going to learn the exact sentence that keeps the conversation outside without turning it into a fight. You're going to learn how to ask about a warrant the right way, because one wrong word can sound like consent. You're going to learn why stepping onto the porch is often the biggest mistake people make, even when they think they're being calm and respectful. And you're going to learn the one final line that shuts the whole thing down if officers keep pushing. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. The officer sounds casual. The person inside tries to be helpful. Then the door opens, the talking starts, and everything gets worse. Let me show you exactly how to stop that before it starts. Most people have no idea how fast a doorstep talk can move from friendly to dangerous. You hear a knock, you peek outside. An officer says your name and asks if you can step out for a second. That sounds small. It sounds harmless. A lot of people think saying no will make them look guilty. So they open up, step outside, and start explaining things nobody asked them to explain. That is where the trap lives. Officers are trained to keep things calm, casual, and conversational. They may say they're just clearing something up. They may say you're not in trouble. They may say if you cooperate, this will be easy. Here's the reality. The moment you start helping them build the story, you lose control of the moment. Your words can be used. Your body language can be used. What they see behind you can be used. And if you step outside, you may give away the safest place you had, which was inside your home with the door closed. The first thing you do is keep the barrier between you and them. That means the door stays shut, or at most cracked with a lock in place if you choose. You do not swing it open wide. You do not walk out onto the porch. You do not invite them in to clear things up. You talk through the door. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I do not open my door without a warrant. You can speak to me right here." Word for word. Memorize that line. That sentence works because it does three smart things at once. First, it stays respectful. You are not yelling. You're not refusing to talk in a rude way. Second, it makes your boundary clear. Third, it stops the officer from using the open doorway to see more, hear more, or pressure you more. This is 100% legal. Your home gets the strongest protection the law gives. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. Officers can knock. That does not mean you have to open up and make their job easier. Watch what happens when people do it the wrong way. The officer says, "Hey, can you come out here a second?" The person answers, "Sure, what's going on?" Then they step outside in socks and a t-shirt, leaving the door wide open behind them. Now the officer can see into the home. Maybe they notice someone else moving around. Maybe they smell alcohol or smoke. Maybe they spot something on a table. Maybe they start asking who else is inside. The whole scene expands in seconds. Bad way. Most people say, "Yeah, hold on, I'm coming out." Then the officer controls the space and the questions keep growing. Good way. Smart people say, "Officer, I do not open my door without a warrant. You can speak to me right here." Then the barrier stays up and the pressure stays down. Let me show you exactly why this matters. When you stay behind the door, you make them work with the facts they already have. When you open it wide, you may hand them new facts for free. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it shows you never gave casual permission for the encounter to expand. That matters later if the officer claims you were cooperative, invited them in, or seemed fine with a deeper search. Now, staying behind the door does not mean acting tough. Don't curse, don't threaten, don't shove the door. Don't pretend you're not home if they already know you are. Just stay calm and keep the line simple. "You can speak to me right here." That line buys you time. It lowers your chance of making a panic move. It also keeps you from doing the thing that ruins most of these encounters, which is stepping into the trap before you even know why they're there. And there's one more thing. If the officer says, "Why are you making this difficult?" do not take the bait. Calmly repeat the line. If they say, "We just want to help," repeat the line. If they say, "Only guilty people act like this," repeat the line. Your goal is not to win the argument. Your goal is to keep your rights intact. Have you ever had police show up and ask you to step outside? Drop a comment below and tell me if you knew you could keep that door closed. The second move is making them say whether they actually have legal paper or just social pressure. A lot of people hear a strong voice and assume it means the officer has a right to come in. That is not how it works. A badge is not a blank check. You need to know whether they have a warrant, and you need to ask in a clean, simple way. You look toward the door and say this: "Do you have a signed warrant? If you do, hold it up to the window." Those exact words. Keep it short. Listen closely because this is critical. There are different kinds of warrants. A search warrant lets officers look for listed items in listed places. An arrest warrant may let them come in for a person in some situations if they reasonably believe the person is inside. But if they have neither, then, in a normal non-emergency situation, they do not get to walk into your home just because they asked. That's why your first question is not small talk. It is, do you have a signed warrant? Watch what happens when people skip this step. The officer says, open the door. The person panics and opens it because the command sounded official. Then later, they find out there was no warrant at all. It was just pressure, tone, and timing. That is how people talk themselves into giving away what the law would have protected. Bad way. Most people say, okay, I'm opening it. Then they give up the biggest question before it's even asked. Good way. Smart people say, do you have a signed warrant? If you do, hold it up to the window. Then the officer has to show legal authority or admit they don't have it. Florida versus Jardines matters here in plain English. The Supreme Court said your porch is part of your home area, not some free zone where police can roam around however they want. They can approach and knock like any visitor. That does not mean they can turn your doorstep into a fishing trip. Payton vs. New York matters too. In simple words, police usually need a warrant to cross into your home and arrest you inside, unless there's a real emergency. Former police officers have confirmed this works because the calm person who asks for the warrant changes the whole tone of the scene. Suddenly, the officer knows you understand the line. And let's be clear about emergencies. If they say someone is screaming inside, someone is hurt, there's a fire, or a life is in danger, rules can change fast. Do not interfere physically. Do not block them with force. But in the normal, we just want to ask a few questions situation, the warrant question is your shield. This is where tone matters. You're not trying to sound clever. You are trying to sound calm. No speeches, no long arguments. Ask the question. Wait for the answer. If there is no warrant, keep the barrier up and move to the next step. That is how you stay in control without turning it into a scene. The third move is the one that saves people the most, and it is the one they forget under pressure. You never consent to a search, and you do not step outside just to make the officer comfortable. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A lot of home searches start with no warrant at all. They start with a friendly question and a nervous yes. Here's exactly what you say. I do not consent to any searches, and I am not stepping outside without a warrant. Say it slowly. Say it the same way every time. This is powerful because consent changes everything. If you say yes, courts often treat that as you giving permission, even if you felt nervous. Schneckloth vs. Bustamonte is the big case here. In plain English, the court said a search can be valid if your consent looked voluntary, even if police never told you that you could refuse. Think about how wild that is. You might not know your rights, but your yes can still count. That is why this line matters so much. This is 100% legal. You do not have to let them take a quick look. You do not have to let them come in for just a second. You do not have to step out because they say it will be easier. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection. The home is where your rights are strongest, but only if you stop volunteering them away. Bad way. Most people say, I've got nothing to hide, so go ahead. Then the search becomes their own idea on paper. Good way. Smart people say, I do not consent to any searches, and I am not stepping outside without a warrant. Then the officer has a clean no and has to choose a lawful next step. Watch what happens when someone steps outside. The officer says, come out here and talk to me man to man. The person comes out. Now the officer says, mind if my partner makes sure nobody else is inside? Or, mind if we take a quick look around? Or, why are you nervous? One polite yes can turn into a full nightmare. Once that door is open and you're outside, the pressure gets stronger. You may be separated from family. You may not even realize what was just agreed to. That is why your line has to be ready before the knock ever comes. And here's something people miss. Refusing consent does not create probable cause by itself. Saying no is not a crime. Saying no is not obstruction by itself. Saying no is you using the protection the Constitution gives you. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it cuts off the officer's favorite claim, which is that you seemed okay with everything. If the officer pushes back and says, why not if you've got nothing to hide? Do not debate. Innocent people get trapped by that question every day. Just repeat the line. I do not consent to any searches. If they ask you again to step out, repeat the second half. I'm not stepping outside without a warrant. Short, calm, clean. That is how smart people survive this moment. 90% of people would have caved by now. If you're still here, you're already ahead of almost everyone. Drop a comment saying I'm still here, because this next part is the one that keeps you from talking yourself into trouble. The fourth move is ending the conversation before stress makes you sloppy. Even if you kept the door shut, asked about a warrant, and refused consent, you can still hurt yourself by talking too much. People love to explain. They want to sound innocent. They want to be liked. That urge is dangerous. Here's exactly what you say. I choose to remain silent. If I am being detained, I want a lawyer. If not, I'm ending this conversation. Memorize that line too. That sentence works because it closes all the gaps. You're not giving facts. You're not guessing. You're not making a half denial that can be twisted later. You are either being detained or you are not. If you are, you want a lawyer. If you are not, the conversation ends. Simple. Bad way. Most people say, I can explain everything. Then they start filling in blanks the officer did not even have. Good way. Smart people say, I choose to remain silent. If I am being detained, I want a lawyer. If not, I'm ending this conversation. Then the talking stops before the damage starts. People think silence makes them look guilty. That is backwards. Talking is what creates risk. Small lies can become crimes. Bad guesses can sound like admissions. Nervous jokes can sound sinister on body cam. Later, I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the people who do best are usually the ones who talk the least while staying calm and respectful. This also protects you from the classic split tactic. One officer talks nice, another stands back and watches. They wait for you to say something different to each one. Then later, they compare your own words against you. The fix is easy. Stop talking. Ask for counsel if detained. End it if not. And no, you do not need to sound like a lawyer. Say it like a normal person. Slow voice, no attitude. Then be quiet. That last part matters. If you say you're remaining silent and then keep chatting, the line loses power. Silence is not magic words. Silence is the actual silence after the words. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and it connects to everything you learned so far. Closed door, warrant question, no consent, no talking. That is the whole shield. Now let's tie the law together in plain English so this sticks in your head when the knock comes. Payton v. New York means police usually cannot enter your home to arrest you inside without a warrant unless there's a real emergency. In normal English, your house is not public space. They need proper legal power to cross that line. Florida versus Jardines means your front porch is part of your protected home area. In plain English, officers can walk up and knock, but they do not get free access to snoop around like they own the place. Schneckloth ver Bustamonte means if you consent to a search, courts may still count that yes, even if nobody told you that you could refuse. In normal English, your nervous yes can become their legal ticket. That is why every tactic in this video fits together. Keeping the door closed protects the line. Asking for the warrant forces the legal question into the open. Refusing consent stops the easy shortcut around the warrant. Staying silent prevents you from building the case with your own mouth. Former police officers have confirmed this works, not because it is rude, but because it is clean, calm, and lawful. When you act this way, you make officers use the rules instead of your panic. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in a real scene. It's 9:40 at night. You hear a hard knock. You look through the peephole and see two officers. One says, "We just need to ask you a few questions. Can you step outside?" Your heart jumps. This is where most people lose. Wrong way first. You open the door wide and say, "Sure, what's this about?" One officer steps closer. The other looks past you into the house. They ask who else is inside. You answer. They ask if they can come in and make sure everyone is okay. You say, "I guess so." Now they are inside. They notice something on the kitchen counter. They start asking about it. You keep talking because you think honesty will save you. 10 minutes later, you're in a situation you never had when the knock first came. Now the right way. You stay behind the closed door and say, "Officer, I do not open my door without a warrant. You can speak to me right here." They ask you to come outside. You answer, "Do you have a signed warrant? If you do, hold it up to the window." They say no, they just want to talk. You answer, "I do not consent to any searches, and I'm not stepping outside without a warrant." Then they keep pushing with, "If you've done nothing wrong, why make this hard?" You stay calm and say, "I choose to remain silent. If I'm being detained, I want a lawyer. If not, I'm ending this conversation."